Hello, I am Dr. Jessica Cooke and welcome to our Feed for Growth video learning series on calf management and nutrition. In this presentation, I will cover whey and skim dairy proteins in milk replacer.
Dairy ingredients are the main source of protein in milk replacers, and these include skim and whey. I want to start with looking at whole milk first. The proteins which make up whole milk are casein and whey. Casein makes up 80% of whole milk, with the remaining 20% made up of whey. Skim milk is simply whole milk with the fat removed. This is then dried to give skim milk powder with a protein level of around 35%. Whey protein is a co-product of cheese production. Liquid whey can be defined as the liquid fraction remaining after the precipitation of casein. Liquid whey can then be processed in a number of different ways, giving rise to different types of whey ingredients. These include whey powder, which is when the liquid whey has been spray dried. It remains low in protein at around 12 to 13%. Delactose whey is when a proportion of the lactose has been removed. This concentrates up the protein portion to around 27%, but delactose whey can have high levels of ash, which is your minerals, sodium and potassium, due to the delactosing process. High ash levels are not desirable for the young calf as they can increase the risk of calf scour. Concentrated whey protein is when the protein portion of liquid whey has been concentrated up through a series of ultrafiltration processes. Concentrated whey protein is high in protein at around 35%, so similar to that of skim milk powder. At Volap Milk Replacers, we use concentrated whey protein in our milk replacers, which we call Immunipro. Due to the low temperature processing, Immunipro retains the bioactive components found naturally in the whey fraction of whole milk, and it is these bioactive components that help to support the health, growth and development of the young calf. Next, I want to look at how the calf digests these different dairy ingredients. When whole milk or milk replacer with a high skim content enters the abomasum, a clot is formed as a result of the enzymes, pepsin and renin, in the abomasum acting upon the casein protein. The clot is slowly digested and emptied from the abomasum into the small intestine for further digestion. Casein can only be digested in the small intestine after a good clot formation in the abomasum, because the enzymes in the small intestine appear incapable of hydrolyzing the specific bonds acted upon by the abomasal enzymes renin and pepsin. Whey protein is naturally digested in the small intestine by the pancreatic enzymes without the action of the abomasal enzymes. Therefore, with whole milk and skim-based milk replacers, the whey proteins initially trapped within the casein clot are released and pass through the abomasum into the small intestine for digestion. When whey protein is the only source of dairy protein in a milk replacer, no clot will form within the abomasum due to the absence of casein. The whey protein passes through the abomasum into the small intestine for digestion, as it would if feeding whole milk. Research has shown that the clotting effect of casein in skim milk is not required for optimal calf performance. This can be seen in a trial that we have recently carried out. In this trial, 2 milk replacers were formulated. One with a high skim content, where 66% of the ingredient was skim milk powder. The second was based on Volap Milk Replacers concentrated whey protein. The 2 milk replacers were both formulated using high quality protein, so the diets were comparing like for like. Holstein Friesian calves were fed up to 7 litres per day, with milk replacer mixed at 15%. So calves received a total of 1,050 grams of milk solids per day. As seen in the graph, there was no difference in the body weight of calves between the 2 groups throughout the milk feeding period. At weaning on day 56, calves fed the skim-based milk replacer weighed on average 72.8 kilograms, and those fed the milk replacer based on whey protein achieved 73.5 kilograms. Calf health was also comparable between the two treatments. In addition to the performance of calves to weaning, it is important to consider their lifetime performance, so heifers in this trial were monitored through to third calving. Firstly, there was no difference in the age or body weight of heifers at first breeding. Both weighed around 385 kilograms at 460 days. Looking at the maiden heifer fertility, the heifers that had previously been fed the milk replacer based on concentrated whey protein had slightly better fertility, requiring fewer services per conception, and had a higher first service conception rate. But despite these differences in fertility, there was no difference in the age at first calving between the two groups. This was partly due to the removal of one heifer in the skim group with poor fertility, which didn't conceive until 557 days, so around 19 months, but then aborted and failed to calve and was culled, so her data is not accounted for in the age at calving figure. A similar number of heifers in each group calved by 24 months of age. This next slide looks at the performance of the two groups of heifers through to third calving. It takes around 1.5 lactations to pay back the cost of the rearing period, so it is key that heifers survive at least 1.5 lactations. The same number of heifers in each group reached a third calving, and just one in the skim group failed to survive 1.5 lactations. Milk production over the first 2 lactations was similar across the two groups, with the same total days in milk in lactation 1 and lactation 2, and a similar total milk yield of around 17,500 kilograms. Milk per day of life is a useful parameter to consider as it reflects herd efficiency, incorporating the fertility, health, age at calving and milk production of animals. There was little difference in milk per day of life between the two treatments, with both achieving on average 12 kilograms per day. Overall, this data shows that if using a milk replacer with either good quality whey protein or good quality skim at a high level, there will be little difference in the performance of heifers through to third calving. As discussed already, whole milk and milk replacer with a high skim content will form a firm, solid clot in the abomasum. This clot is slowly digested and emptied from the abomasum into the small intestine for further digestion. Casein can only be digested in the small intestine after a good clot formation in the abomasum. A milk replacer with a low skim content will form only a weak clot. This breaks up rapidly and leaves the abomasum quickly. It appears that the enzymes in the small intestine are then unable to digest the casein protein, which can negatively affect calf performance. Therefore, if using a skim milk replacer, it is important to know the level of skim present and use one with a high skim content to ensure good clot formation. The processing temperature of both skim and whey protein is also important. A high processing temperature can reduce the ability of the skim to clot, and a high processing temperature can denature the valuable bioactive components of whey protein. Processing temperature of the raw materials cannot be determined by looking at a bag, therefore it is recommended to always use a trusted supplier. In summary, if processed correctly, both skim milk powder and whey protein are highly digestible sources of dairy protein and can deliver good calf and heifer performance. If using a skim-based milk replacer, it is important to use one with a high skim content to ensure good clot formation. The processing method and temperature of both whey protein and skim is key, as this determines protein quality and can determine digestibility of the protein. Thank you.